where we give you the latest and greatest and sometimes not so great headlines in our industry. I would say most of what we're going to share today is pretty cool.
So it'll be
Right?
boring. No mass chaos and confusion
Well, I
to drive the
mean,
ratings. Yeah.
that's, we can't promise that.
Okay.
But
It's a lighthearted, positive episode. So
right, exactly. Well, we're going to start on a good note, that's for sure. So, this last weekend, Target and Parke rolled out their collaboration that was much anticipated, and boy, they're like already sold out.
which is nothing new for her. I mean,
Yeah.
when she launched in 22, she really established this change that is pretty traditional in terms of marketing advertising. It's all community driven. She launched on TikTok, limited tight collections. Chelsea would launch and then boom, it would sell out. And she's had this history. So it definitely makes sense for someone like Target to weigh in and say, hey, let's see if we can do this on a bigger scale. And surprisingly, yet once again, they're blowing through units, right?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, this is a brand that's become a favorite brand of maybe a younger generation, but it's not inexpensive. Their price points a little bit more of a premium price point, 120, 140 for a sweatshirt, and so the opportunity to collaborate with a more accessible retailer like Target is a really good fit. So opening price points on some of their items started at $5. I think the most expensive went up to 40. So this is a really good opportunity for those who might not have the same ability to pay $140 for an item to get a piece. So I can understand why those shelves are rapidly clearing out. What I like about what Parke did as a brand when they launched, unlike so many that spend a lot of money on social media with paid advertising, they chose a different model, and it really worked out. You think about some of the things that Deborah Weinswig, the founder of Coresight, that we've had many conversations with, and in fact in this last season of our longer format clothing culture, had a great conversation with her about opportunities for retailers, and this brand is kind of one of those that's done some of those creative things with live streaming and mini collection drops and surprise sales that, like, over the summer, she dedicated every summer turning a Friday into like one of these marketing moments, and her sales went up 1,000% year over year. I mean, those are some serious numbers. Yeah. Now, looking at maybe the not so good in the industry, a retailer that we've talked about over the last year that's been struggling on the other side of things, Nike. Nike has just reported that they are now cutting 1,400 more jobs. This is their second round of cuts.
It represents only about 2% of the current workforce, but it is kind of like a little view into the headwinds that Nike's dealing with.
Well, some of this we've talked about is just the competition factor. There's a lot of people weighing into this space, and so that's been a bit of a challenge. But they're rolling out this new strategy to try to create a leaner, faster, more agile organization, and reallocating reallocating their resources, trying to lean in a little bit more with innovation. So we'll see if that yields the results they're hoping to achieve with better profitability.
And this is always kind of this whole conversation about these massive brands that have grown up and become ubiquitous. And at some stage, people just kind of say, wow, I've got a lot in my closet. There's not a lot of newness and extensions to the brand. So it's kind of like I'm just kind of rebuying the same old stuff. And I think they're having to really take a hard look at innovation, like you mentioned. And I think incorporating some new brand extensions could be very, very important in that mix right now, or they're going to continue to see competition eat away maybe at some of their profits.
I could take that story a little personally, couldn't I, with you saying you've got a lot in your closet, not a lot of time to clear
Talk
it out.
About ubiquitous. Wow. Yeah.
But the key takeaway is there needs to be newness. No.
It's funny how you pick up on that point. Yeah.
So some newness happening on the Lululemon side of things. This, of course, is a competing brand of Nike. This is so interesting. They've just named a former executive from Nike, Heidi O'Neill, as their new CEO.
This is like the soap opera, right? So you look at luxury and you look at these big brands, and every week we talk about switches and turmoil and people moving back and forth, and where maybe one group isn't performing, they're moving, personnel from one to the other, and this is kind of the same thing. I mean, Lululemon's, in our previous conversation, revenue is suffering because of competition like Aloe and Biore and others stepping in, and so bringing in outside expertise that have experience growing these big brands makes sense on one point. But at the same time, the strategy is a unique one, because these groups that they're bringing over understand mass apparel, mass scale, but do they really understand innovation as it relates to the competition that's existing?
Well, I think that's what they're hoping happens with Heidi, that they bring that spirit of innovation forward, with a good focus on that again, and really looking at their product relevance, making sure there's value in it. So, we'll keep a watch on that. Something that might be in the category of not so great on our news side of things. There's been a report issued of the retail sales in the UK, and my goodness, they have tumbled.
Yeah, I think sales are down. They're talking about their worst year-over-year drop in overall retail sales going on in the UK, and
since 1983.
Yes,
this is
And I think there's just a lot of conversation about consumer confidence dropping. There's this inflation fears that are coming up. We've got global tensions. They're seeing this microcosm of people just sitting down saying, hey, this is a early warning sign. We're worried about economic trouble ahead. So far, the US has shown a bit of resiliency lately, versus the impact of all this kind of craziness or chaos that's going on, in the world surrounding us today with our markets. But the question is how much longer will that hold on?
Right. So often it seems like there's regions that are early indicators, right? So it's just something to keep a watchful eye on for sure. Okay, final story. I'm very excited about this.
Yes.
The much anticipated release of The Devil Wears Prada 2 is coming out May 1st. That's this Friday.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. One, it's just a huge moment in fashion where we get to look at all these extraordinary clothes, right? And get a look behind the industry. So it's going to be fun from that perspective. But I think we're going to see more out of it than just a spectacle. The industry is really talking about a kind of cultural fashion reset moment really coming out of this, that this movie isn't just a fashion event. It's going to be it's going to contribute in a little bit bigger way, and that's going to come down into power dressing. They're seeing is going to come back, stronger silhouettes, sharp tailoring, intentional dressing.
Yeah, time changes, but the story remains the same. Yes. We just talked about the JFK Jr. story, launching Calvin Klein again. Devil Wears Prada, no doubt there is some very unique brand positioning in this movie. I mean, can you imagine when they're writing this movie, and we'll see on the launch, but how many brands were clamoring to have their cameo moments in this brand? Because when a consumer sees a movie that is this compelling, right? Everyone's waiting and anticipating that, brands know that if they've got a moment in a movie like that, that could really change their sales trajectory pretty
Yeah,
amazingly.
I think from what I'm hearing, early reports of we're going to be seeing a little bit more of a blending of that archival fashion and kind of like reimagining that a little bit better. I think one of the things that I'm hearing too that's very interesting is that since this movie was released, fashion was in a different mindset. It was much like you talked about in your early era of retail, where the fashion world dictated what you were going to wear.
Yeah.
And that's really changed in the last, what has it been, 20 years since
Yeah.
this movie originally rolled out. It's now more of a consumer-driven economy. And from what I understand, there's a little bit more awareness of that evolution in this story.
I will bet there's a little bit more, but I would bet the runway influence is back. I would tell you that their film to kind of retail pipeline is firmly engaged, and retailers are probably looking forward to seeing what this movie drives in terms of retail.
I'm interested to see how they address some of the conversations of social media, the influence of that in our new era, AI, luxury brand consolidation, all the things that we talk about on a week-to-week basis.
A better workplace environment, because the very first movie that was
true.
Not there, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens this time.
Yes, it's great. I'm excited. Deborah Wars Prada 2 isn't just reviving iconic looks from round one, but it's reframing what fashion authority looks like today and reminding people why clothes still carry cultural power. So I'm excited to see that.
Yes.
Well, those are our highlights this week. Make sure to subscribe to stay apprised of our upcoming conversations, and we will be here same time, same place.